Yo, what's up everybody? It's Drewberry and we just got a little bit of a sneak peek into the potential patch that is coming next week. It seems like Brode kind of said that it was coming today. It got pushed back for some kind of reason behind the scenes, and then all of a sudden it got leaked from a foreign website. So it was translated and I had a look at the patch notes while I was at work and I was like, holy smokes, I got to get home and record this. So I just got back from work, put this together because I want to talk about some of the changes, and I think overall people are pretty disappointed with what they're seeing in this leaked patch. I do actually think this is going to be the official patch that we're going to see. I don't think they would make any last minute changes, and everything about this seems legit. It seems the way Team Second Dinner would approach balance changes, would make their patch notes. So I'm pretty sure this is what's coming. I have some feelings. My initial thoughts was disappointed, but now I'm starting to lean on these changes a little bit better. So we'll get into that in a second. We break down all the balance changes and I highlight some other changes they made. If you don't want to be spoiled about the upcoming changes, turn away now. I'm going to reveal them in just a second. All right, so here we go. Now, of course, it said it earlier, but I want to say it again. This is not official. Things could change. I just have a really big feeling that this is what's going to happen. Okay, so the leak patch was on January 4th. We don't have an exact time when this is going to come out. A few highlights here in the general notes and location updates. Okay, so artist credits are going to be on, I hope, every single card, and I think that's great. That's a great add. We've long awaited that. They're slowing down some animations. You can filter your variants. That's all great, but they're putting in Orca at Series 4, and I think that's great. Series 4 makes it a little bit easier to buy. It's better than throwing him at Series 5. He was announced at Series 4. Glad they kept him there. There's also a pro bundle. It's going to be a one-time purchase and you get a bunch of credits and you get a bunch of cards going straight to infinity. I assume anyone can buy this bundle, but we don't have a price yet, so I don't know if it's valuable or if anyone should buy it just yet, but that is a lot of credits. I would have loved to see some tokens, but we'll take the credits, right? If it's a reasonable price. Okay, and then the worst part. I think honestly this is the worst part of the whole patch for me, because I really wanted them this season to address the economy and make some method of acquiring cards a little bit easier. I don't want all the cards, guys. Don't get it wrong. I understand the grind to get cards, and I think that's an enjoyable experience to a point, but it is so painfully slow. It is snail paced right now, and this is what they changed this patch. At least there could be another change, but it's likely not until next month. But this is what they did. The people who have completed Series 3, we have the opportunity, I believe it rests at about 25% is the acquisition rate for 400 tokens in one shot, right? So you actually get this pretty reasonably often. That's how I've acquired most of my tokens after I finished Series 3, which was a while ago, so since the token shop has been out. Now it's a variable. It's 200 to 600. So in the end, it's going to equate to about the same amount of tokens. So there's literally no difference here, except sometimes it's going to feel bad and sometimes it's going to feel good. And the reason I really hate this is because you didn't change anything. You didn't address the problem that is happening in Marvel Snap right now that most of your player base is complaining about. You just made it more random, and nobody really wants that. Now, because the quick acquisition rate is basically the same, I might have a really bad streak of like 200 tokens, and I don't know if there's a pity timer on this. I could have a really lucky streak and hit 600, and you know, everything should balance out. But geez, there's going to be the unlucky person that just gets shafted every single time, and this is just a negative for them. And then there's the lucky people. I don't know. It's hard to really evaluate this. And then location updates. Professor X works better on Oscorp. They decreased the chance of Warrior Falls appearing, so it must be like a super rare or rare location now, which is kind of cool. I don't really vibe with that one all that much. And then they updated the text for the raft and vibranium mines. Don't know what that looks like, but I appreciate it because the raft is confusing. Let's get into the balance changes. All right, kicking it off on the nerfs, we have Aero, and we all kind of expected this to happen. I put her at 5.6 in my prediction video. By the way, my prediction video is just totally for fun. People take that way too seriously. I don't want all those changes to happen. I just like to speculate and have discussion about balance. So this is a great change in my opinion. 5.7, perfect. I love Aero as a card. I have a great variant for her. I really enjoy playing this card. I didn't want to see it nerfed to the ground. Honestly, even if it were 5.6, it would still see a lot of play. you play Aero for the ability, not the power output that she gives at the location. So you reduce her power by 1, and maybe she sees a little bit less play, but I think she's still one of the more powerful cards in Series 3. I mean, this is a pretty soft nerf, but reasonable one, so I'm here for it, and I'm glad that I can still play Aero. Ah, yes, and then we have Leader, the most anticipated nerf, and I think this is the one that everyone's upset about. They didn't kill this big green-headed guy, right? He's still going to run rampant in the meta because they reduce his power by 1, which, watch out, it's a trend in this video. They don't like to make big splashes in the meta anymore. Fun fact, I believe since global launch, they haven't changed a card more than like 2 power, maybe, if they've done that. I don't even know if they've done that. In the beta, they actually made significant changes every now and then. So anyhow, a 1 power reduction for Leader. Does he change and do we see less of him? Maybe. Power is a big deal for Leader because that is his 1 foot up on your opponent's turn 6. So if all is equal, you know, and then your opponent plays something that doesn't, you know, I don't know, anti-synergize with Leader, like they just play Infinite, right? Well, then you get 23 power, your opponent gets 20. Before it was 24 power, your opponent gets 20. Like that's the idea behind Leader and how you kind of get ahead. Now, ideally, when you're playing Leader, you're already ahead in the game, so whatever you copy is enough and you don't actually really need Leader's power, but it does come into play occasionally, and I think like nerfing the power might make a difference in some games. But he's still the same guy, you know, he's still copying your big turn 6 play that you built your deck around, which is really frustrating. And I think that's the worst part of this card, not actually his power output. It's just like, it's just null and voids turn 6 very frequently. And you always have to think about it before your turn 5, like when you're leading up to the turn 6, like, oh, what do I do if they leader me later on? Should I play my cards now? So I don't know. I think it's still going to be that same Leech Leader deck is still going to hang around for another month. It's kind of rough. I would have liked to see maybe even more power reduction. Honestly, even just 1 more. I think 6-2. And we would have been a little bit more happy and it would have made a significant change. But 6-3 still might not be enough. They even said in the patch notes that they will revisit this card if he is still played a lot. So we will likely see another nerf on Leader. Galactus gets a nerf. Okay, this is a big deal, guys. This is the first nerf to a Series 5 card, and there's no refunds. They never said they would give refunds. In fact, in the token shop, it says no refund. But me and a lot of the player base, I think, are a little bit hopeful that they changed their mind on that. Because if you just drop 6K tokens on this guy yesterday, let's say, or even you do it today and you didn't know about these leaked patch notes, and then all of a sudden it gets nerfed, it's going to feel a little bit bad. Now, luckily, this isn't a huge change. Galactus doesn't really rely on his own power. He's trying to do the thing, destroy the thing, so that on turn 6 you can play Death, Null, whatever you got in your back pocket, and that's what's going to be your power source, right? So is it that bad? I don't know. Somebody actually mentioned in my Discord that this is a potential buff because you actually want your opponent to have priority when you're playing a Galactus deck so that your stuff doesn't get Shang-Chi'd, Enchantress if you're running Iron Man, you know, that kind of thing. So you can actually avoid some counters when you have less power off your Galactus. But that might not always be the case because sometimes you like to set up the Galactus location with Green Goblin or a Wolverine jumps over or just something like that. Maybe start changing up the Galactus deck a little bit. But ultimately, I think this isn't a nerf or a buff too heavy on either side. This is just kind of like whatever. Glad they went this route personally. As someone who really likes playing Galactus, I feel fine with this. I'm a little nervous that they're willing to nerf Series 5 cards so soon. I think I would prefer balance over compensation. I'm totally fine with that ideology, but I just, you know, it's gonna burn somebody at some point if they keep going this route. So we just got to be careful, but it's interesting to note, and I think overall he's still a fun card. Should you drop 6K tokens on him? No, that's still way too expensive, dude. They got to change these prices, but regardless, he's okay. And the surprise nerf of the patch goes to Nova. What the heck, dude? Okay, so Nova, he's a 1/2 and he destroys and he gives a bunch of +1 power. Yeah, that's a lot of value. But here's the thing. Nova never wants to survive. He wants to die every game that you can play him, almost every time. Even if you're running Khazar Zoo, you want to destroy that Nova to buff all your other 1-drops. There's like very, very minimal scenarios where you actually just want to play Nova for his stats. Now, I'll tell you one of them. Turn 6, you can't destroy him. You just need power and it works out in your curve, right? So you throw out Nova for the 2 power. Okay, so that scenario got nerfed. But otherwise, what what did this change? Nothing. Like, I don't know. You want to kill Nova every time. Maybe if your opponent armors, right, you have a worse card at that location. I could see that. That makes sense. But still, like, I don't know if this is enough of a change or even a warranted change. Was anybody really complaining about Nova? Fun little fact about Nova, he used to be a 1/2 give +2 power to all other cards on your board. That was the meta for the longest time. The first 2 or 3 months of Snap's existence was revolved around Nova Carnage combo. And then he got nerfed to 1 power and everyone thought, hey, that's pretty reasonable. You know what? He actually didn't see a lot of play for a while, and now he's come back with the Death Wave decks, Destroy decks. So is this too crazy, too passive? No, it's neither, because he didn't really particularly need a nerf, but this one doesn't hurt him all that much, so fine, fair play. Team Second Dinner, go for it. All right, and let's get into the buffs here. I'm going to go over these pretty quickly because I don't think there's too many differences here, but Drax ended up with +1 power on his base stat line, and he also lost a power on his ability. I don't know how I feel about this. It's kind of weird. I think it's pretty mild either way. Like, I would have liked to just leave his power total alone, like from the effect, like just +4, then he's a 4/9. Like, that was actually what I suggested. I think that would be okay, but hey, we'll just run with this. So basically he's just a little bit more consistent. If you whiff, it's fine, but not really, because you could be running the thing, which would be better. I don't know, but on reveal decks he's actually worse, because you would actually get more power stacking it with Wong, right? You would get 4, 8, 12. Now you're just going to get 6 + 5, 11. So I don't know. It's a bit of a nerf there. Odin, same deal, but better in Zabu decks because now it's like less of a whiff, but I don't know if you still make room for that. There's so many better applications with Zabu. So yeah, still one of the worst Series 3 cards. Feels bad. And Groot is in the exact same scenario, except Groot has the benefit of being cheaper, which is just a little bit better because it feels less bad when you whiff. So a 3/4 is actually okay. It's literally the Cyclops stat line, right? Except Cyclops gets the benefit from Patriot, no ability synergy, whereas Groot actually has an ability, maybe with that Wong and Odin, but again, it's not as good. You'd get 2, 4, it'd be an 8. Whereas before you'd get 6 plus it would be 9, right? So it's actually less in the on reveal decks, but Silver Surfer decks are pretty good. And I think it could make a good case for Groot actually being run in it, because 6 and then you get him to 9, like that's actually a efficient power output. So maybe Groot sees play in those kind of decks, but I think overall it's a super minor change, just like Drax. They should have probably just left the power total in their effect alone and see what happened there, and then maybe revisit if all of a sudden these Guardians of the Galaxy cards got out of hand, but I doubt it. So whatever, they went with that. Maybe they'll get buffs in the future. Then we got Black Cat. Dude, this is one of the more interesting ones to me. A 3/7 now over 3/6. You know, like she really greatly benefits from her power. That's her whole gimmick, right? She gets discarded if you don't play it. If you draw it before turn 3, you can't even play it, and then it just gets discarded, and that kind of sucks. But the value is playing her because she's only a 3 for high power, right? Well, what if we start running her in some Hella decks? I might actually experiment with this, because she just automatically gets discarded. You don't have to worry about playing her, and then Hella will bring her back, and she's 7 power. Like, that's a significant boost, I think. The 1 power actually makes the world a difference. Kind of like the Maximus line, where you play Maximus because of his power output. You don't want to give your opponent cards, right? But he's a 3/7. Now she's a 3/7 too. I think that's a great stat. So might actually see this more in discard, but still a little bit inconsistent. You can't just start to plug this in like you can Maximus, so he's the more flexible of the two. But in discard decks, we might start seeing Black Cat a little bit more often. Hazmat got a change as well, +1 power, so it's a 2/2 now instead of a 2/1. This actually has a little bit more of an impact, I think, because she's giving out negative power and she never hits herself. It's all other cards. So if she has more power, you're always going to be that much more ahead. Like if she was like a 2/4, that'd be insane, right? Because her location is just probably definitely going to win. You play her at a solo location and your opponent has 4 cards. It's like, boom, what a swing you just did. That's like Spider-Woman, right? But regardless, I think this is actually going to really help. And then it's a roundabout buff to Luke Cage, Colossus, almost that like whole package that wants to give negative power out. They just got a buff, which was what they said in the patch notes, is that they saw this deck, it just wasn't performing the way that they wanted it to, so they gave it a buff, which I find kind of interesting, because I've seen this deck work quite a bit. It's a little bit inconsistent. It doesn't need more power. It just needs like almost better draw or more cards that give negative power to be super effective. And it also really revolves around Luke Cage. If you don't get him, sometimes it feels bad. But anyways, I think this is a pretty cool change. Hazmat has some of the coolest variants, so to see her played a little bit more is awesome. Also a Series 3 card. I think that a lot of people are disappointed when they're first climbing up in Series 3. So maybe this feels a little bit less bad when you open this up from a chest. So I'm here for it. I'm here for this change. And lastly, we have Nakia getting buffed to 2 power. So I left this one last for a reason. I think this is the most interesting one. Nakia has been changed more than any other card in Marvel Snap. I think Devil Dino might be close, but Nakia has been changed 4 times. Now, minor changes sometimes, but her whole ability was revamped. She's been through it. She's been through a lot. And now I think she's in probably a perfect spot. The 1 power does make a difference. It felt bad about playing Nakia on 3 because you're not putting a lot of power out, and you might not even play the cards that are on the leftmost in your hand unless the stars align, right? So it was kind of inconsistent in that sense. And I really think this should be considered in Silver Surfer decks way more frequently. It already runs Brode, right? You hit Brode with this, and then you're going to Silver Surfer those broodlings later. It's going to be crazy value. And overall now, when you look at her stat line, she's now 3-6 if you end up playing those 2 cards that she hit. And that's fantastic value, right? Before she was 3-5 if you played those cards, and it wasn't quite there. Not to mention those cards that buff, you know, like looking at Black Panther, for instance. Maybe this is a little bit more consistent, maybe a little more worth playing. I think she was still a good card before this change, and I think now she's in a good spot to actually see competitive play. Anyways, guys, that is the leaked patch. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Overall, my feelings are that I like that they're buffing cards. I like the minor adjustments to see what happens, but I think they whiffed in 2 areas. One, they didn't hit some of the frustrating cards enough to satisfy the player base. I think we're still going to see loads of leader complaints. The meta won't really change that much. I think the new cards coming are going to shake up the meta more than these changes will. And then also the other thing is not addressing the token problem and not really making any changes. And the change they did make was, in my opinion, a negative for the most part. So that was just a bit of a slap to the face. And I hope they address that some point in this month, because it's just going to get worse. I'm going to keep talking about it because it needs to be talked about, and it's just going to keep snowballing until people just can't handle it anymore. It becomes too expensive. I'm already feeling that way. Anyways, still loving this game. Love changes. Love talking about balance. So let me know how you feel about this patch below, and I will catch you guys next time.